Time for one of our favorite segments of the week where we talk about how the media covered themselves in glory. This week, we're talking a little bit about how the media... As we all know, there are case numbers. We bring them to you here every day. The number of world-confirmed cases, the number of U.S. cases, and all of that. And as we always caveat in the world cases, it's important to understand that the numbers coming out of not just China, but China and other authoritarian regimes like Iran and others. By the way, our numbers are not the best either, but there's a lot more transparency there, at least on what they are, where the shortcomings might be. Well, other people in the media refused to acknowledge that. And so when the United States hit about 100,000 cases, there were constant headlines. Axios, NPR, Reuters, the New York Times, pretty much the entire mainstream media decided to say that the United States has overtaken the world. They have the most amount of cases in the world. And it's obviously irresponsible because as we covered, we are seeing stories out of Wuhan, the province where this virus originated, where crematoriums are reporting thousands of urns of cremated bodies in this place that are not showing up in the official statistics. And we also know that it broke this week. The U.S. intelligence community had an assessment that Chinese are completely not being truthful about the number of cases.
Who could have
Same
guessed?
with Iran.
Who could have
Same
seen that
with, like I
coming?
said, this is not just a Chinese thing. This is like all of the... North Korea says they have 0 cases. Who wants to buy that one, okay?
Yeah.
They have a border with China. Color me skeptical.
Right.
So-
Yes, exactly right. And it's like, I mean, there's a couple things at work here. I'm interested to hear your perspective on why. I mean, partly there's just like the grabby headline of we're number one, right? We're the worst place in the world. And that's not to minimize. Like, it's bad here. There's no doubt about it.
You can acknowledge two things: that the United States government has dramatically failed in stopping this, and that it's a horrific crisis and outbreak here, and that the Chinese also had one and covered it up and lied about it. They're not mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But there's such an interest in like the quick and easy headline that all of their supposed interest in the facts and the science and the data that they've been, hounding, rightfully so, politicians who've wanted to ignore, goes out the window when it comes to grabbing on this splashy headline. And look, we should be very careful, as you're alluding to, with all of these numbers, because there aren't enough tests out there to really have a handle on how many cases there are, exactly where they are. You can look at trends, you can extrapolate some things, you can use them as sort of a guideline, but you can't know for certain exactly what's going on everywhere. In certain coverage, they seem to know that, and in other coverage, when it suits their interests, that just all goes out the window.
I have really learned throughout this whole thing that people in the mainstream media and some segments of the left and the right do not actually understand the Chinese government, maybe some and the danger in using Chinese propaganda in order to justify an internal narrative that the U.S. government is failing. I don't know why it's not enough to just be like, yeah, the government response here is completely dead. And then they act as if talking about the Chinese response in some way absolves the government. No, again, these are not mutually exclusive things. You can say that this was covered up, that the WHO, the World Health Organization, totally bought and paid for by China, has been revealed, accepted Chinese propaganda in early January, that there was no human-to-human transmission, which was something being said by the Communist Party because they didn't want to shut down internal travel, despite the fact that they had whistleblowers 3 weeks earlier, and that these numbers that are coming out and being credulously reported, they just don't even have the wherewithal to think, hey, you know what? We can't doubt the Chinese numbers because they need that headline to say that Trump has failed. And why can't you just say it's failed? It has. There's no question. Nobody's saying otherwise.
But it's that desire for that extra reach. And you see this very human tendency, but that desire for the extra reach that really undermines your credibility and makes the whole case against him land flat, because then people can justifiably point to, look, you grabbed onto these numbers because you wanted to say something bad about Trump. They're not really backed up. They're based on Chinese government propaganda. Nobody actually believes that these numbers are accurate, and yet you have to go there to try to make your point against Trump. There are plenty of points to make against Trump. There's plenty of points to make about how the administration was way too slow to react. He tried to dismiss it as the flu, say that it was just going to go away, was really reluctant to put the thumb on industry to get them to gin up production of this critical equipment. Equipment's still flowing overseas. These are all things that we've covered here extensively and will continue to do so. But it's when you try to make that extra reach that's not based on facts and science, that you undermine the whole case.
And this was the issue from the very beginning. And everybody is at fault here, Trump and the media, because the media is the one who created the just the flu narrative. That came from the Washington Post, that came from Vox, that came from all of these places because they were worried about xenophobia and travel bans against China in early January. And so they were like, no, it's just the flu, worry about the flu. So they created this. Then yeah, it was picked up by Trump wrongfully, who was scared out of his mind at the idea of having to shut down the economy. Everybody is complicit in this narrative. And it's just, I think it's really shameful the way that it's all been accepted, both in the Chinese way, the way that the narrative was created in the first place, and yes, the government response. We can talk about that without having to accept propaganda from our enemies in order to diminish the president. I just think like all of it is so foolish and stupid. And that really is like the perfect, the circle of hell that never ends. When it all comes down to it, it's like media creates something, Trump adopts it, media starts going against it, takes Chinese numbers, people call out the media for Chinese numbers, nobody trusts each other,
right.
And here we are.
What did you say? They covered themselves in glory?
Yeah, they cover themselves in glory. So.
All right, everyone, enjoy your day. We'll have more for you later.